What's up? It's Thursday, September 5th, the day that the NFL is back. Anthony Haney over there, super producer, Craig Hoffman here. How you feeling on NFL is back day?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Love it. Our football coverage presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every penny or every plan versus AT&T. That'd be weird if you're saving on pennies. You're saving on plans with T-Mobile versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. I did it, Anthony. I threw the piece of paper over my head because I felt like it. Because that's the kind of day it is. We're throwing caution to the wind. We're throwing football into your ears. We're throwing Dan Orlovsky at you at 5 o'clock, breaking down Jayden Daniels' debut this weekend against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's up?
Let's get it.
All right. Should probably settle down to a radio show. If we're going to sprint for 3 hours. I don't know if we're going to make it.
You don't think so?
But we can get it. Hey, I did my favorite workout of my entire training cycle today, and it was the speed. It was good. Only took 30-second breaks, too. I was going to do 8 rounds. I did 12 because I felt that good.
Oh, yeah.
That's what kind of day I'm having, Anthony Haney.
Oh, my God. I could tell.
I'm running. We did the NWSL show earlier on my women's sports YouTube. Alex Morgan retired 30 minutes beforehand, so we have breaking news. So, that's the kind of day I'm having. We're just running. I'm probably going to pass out at 9:30 tonight and not make the second half of this game because all of a sudden my body's going to go, oh, you're done? Pfft. Night.
That would add up.
But until then, we're running. We're running.
Up here, baby. Let's get it.
And we have a question for you at 301-230-0980. Who is the second most important commander to the season? Now, we did a countdown before I went to France, Anthony. And do you remember who number 2 was on that list?
I think it was Bobby Wagner.
I think you're incorrect. I think Bobby Wagner was number 3.
All right.
My answer was Frankie Louvu. Because I think he is the most important defender on this team for reasons that I can get into if need be. If I ask you, though, Anthony Haney, because that technically is my answer, right? But we didn't get a chance to talk through it with all the people. So at 301-230-0980, we're diving right in today. Who is the second most important commander to the 2024 season behind the obvious? Every team's most important player is their quarterback. And Jayden carries even more of a burden and weight because he's a first-round rookie, second overall pick. And, we're going to feel a certain type of way about the direction of this franchise based off how he does. That's just an inescapable reality. I don't mean to put that on him. It's just the truth of the circumstances. But who is the next most important commander for this season?
This guy, in my mind, was also on our list, but I think he was towards the bottom. He was like either 9 or 10. But I'm going to go with Brandon Coleman, and I think the short-term and long-term future success of Brandon Coleman will dictate a lot of what we can do, and that's off of, him being inserted in the starting lineup. When we made the list, we didn't know if he was going to start or not. Like, we knew he was in a position battle, but now that we see on the official roster that he's going to be the starting left tackle, if he can go out there and, be that stalwart left tackle for, years and or a decade to come, I think that's going to set up the success of Jayden Daniels for many years to come. You need somebody that's going to be able to protect your blind side. So if he can go out there and have success, and even if, he struggled, he has hiccups, he's in a tough division already. Pass rushers out the juju. So I think every week in, week out, he's going to have a good test. And if he can, withstand some of those tests, have ups and downs, but progress along the way, I think having a starting left tackle and a starting quarterback that are both rookies for our team's success for years to come, I think that's super important. So I will go Brandon Coleman.
I don't disagree with anything you just said in terms of the importance of Coleman for the long term and what it would mean to the franchise if they got a franchise left tackle in the 3rd round of the same draft that they took their franchise quarterback first. However, the reason that we put him, or that I put him, I think it was 9th on that list, maybe it was 7th, but I'm pretty sure it was 9th, was the floor underneath him. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday as well in some different contexts in terms of best case, worst case for Coleman. And it goes back to what the worst case is, which is that he gets benched in favor of Cornelius Lucas. And while that is suboptimal to say the least, we know that Cornelius Lucas is a serviceable swing tackle. He can be game planned around. It does limit your offense, his lack of mobility and his lack of movement. But he's solid at the things he does. They know what he is, which is part of the reason why they're trying to put someone else ahead of him. But at least it's not like you're dead in the water. It's not like, some of these other positions where, like, if Frankie Louvu goes out, who's the backup Frankie Louvu? I guess Jordan McGee's going to do his best impression, but, like, that is a guy that you paid big money in a free agent contract compared to, I think McGee was a 5th-round rookie. So it is a bit of a, like, to me, to say that he is the second most important guy behind Jayden belies the reality that there is a safety net underneath Coleman that even, like, we just don't know. Realistically, Anthony, if we were to say we need to win a game tomorrow or win a game on Sunday and it was the last game that was ever played, we're not talking about trying to develop a guy for a future. Are we even sure that Brandon Coleman is better than Cornelius Lucas right now? I know the things that he can do better. I know the skill set of why they're starting him and the appeal, and I am all on board with that. But we truly don't know if he's actually even better right now than Cornelius Lucas or Trent Scott, for that matter, because we haven't really seen Brandon Coleman play in the preseason, nevertheless a regular season game.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of questions definitely surrounding the guy, but I think this season, I don't think people have lofty expectations for the Commanders. Like, if we go out there and go 8-9, 7-10, I think a lot of people will consider that a successful season. But I guess it wouldn't be fair, but I guess I am looking, You're
taking the longer view.
I'm taking the longer view as opposed to, the immediate. So, again, I'm just looking at his progression. Like, if he goes out there and proves to everybody that he is better than a Cornelius Lucas, he is better than a Trent Scott, he's better than Andrew Wiley, things of that nature, I think that's going to, have a lot of people optimistic about what we could be, because guess what? We can build around this guy right here. We have Sam Cosmi locked up for the future. So that's 2 guys on the offensive line. If they pan out, we'll know for certain what they are behind, in front of, our rookie quarterback.
Not only that, you would not know you don't have to spend high draft capital on that guy next year. And to say, like, okay, left tackle check, now you can spend bigger money on wide receiver, corner, edge, or first-round pick on wide receiver, corner, edge, other positional or premium positions. So if that's your rationale, I don't think you're wrong. If you're looking just through the lens of 2024, there's other guys that make the argument for. Yeah. What about you? And by you, I mean out there on the phones, not Anthony. He just made his argument. 301-230-0980. We will get to the calls. Who is the second most important commander on the 2024 team? That is next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming on YouTube, too, if you like, at the Team 980. But you can watch on your phone, your tablet, your smart TV, your laptop, all the other places that YouTube is. I'm sure there's other places. That's the main ones, though. But we're there at the Team 980. Search us, and we're here live every single day from 4 to 7. And we're taking your calls at 301-230-0980, answering a very simple question. Outside of Jayden Daniels, who's the most important commander for 2024? Let's get to the phones, and let's start off with Matt. Matt, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. Who is your most important commander not named Jayden Daniels for 2024?
First off, I just want to say I love you guys' show. I listen every day now.
Thank you.
First time calling in on a podcast or any radio show ever. But for me, I think it's John Allen. And I know John is not what he used to be, but he's still part of the old guard. He's a team leader, and I think this is going to be a big year for him. I think last year was hard on everybody, but I think John is going to show up this year ready to play. It's going to be important for Jayden and the offense to stay on the field, and that means the defense getting off the field quickly. John brings a lot of aggressiveness, toughness. He's vocal, and like I said, he's a leader. I think this is going to be a big year for him.
Matt, great call. I totally agree with you on John being super important. And outside of Luvu, I think he might be the most important guy on this defense. Thanks for the call and appreciate the kind words as well. I think you make a case for Wagner. I think you make a case for Duran over John. We did in our countdown. But if you want to take Allen and say, okay, what's the case for John Allen? One, he's already done a lot of work, right? For the guys that did remain, John Allen buying in and being a leader and not being like, oh, I don't know about this new staff, and being super bought in, ridiculously important. His voice carries weight in that room, and he has, as far as we know, used it to bring people along in the direction that the coaches and Adam Peters and ultimately Josh Harris want this thing to go. Two, I think John Allen, like we hear this every year, right? Oh, so-and-so came in the best shape of his life. I took one look at John Allen and Duran Payne when they got back and was like, or when they got back from the summer and went, holy crap, those dudes do not look the same as they did in years past. And it's not that I ever looked at John Allen and was like, oh, he's out of shape. But these dudes came ready. Whatever the hell they were asked to do this offseason, they did. Whatever it is that they participated in from an offseason program with Chad Englehart and that strength and conditioning program, it is very, very clear they took what they needed to do seriously. They came in like cut up, super fit, and ready to go. And I remember talking to one offensive lineman during camp after practice, and he was like, John Allen is the hardest. This is a guy who's been around the league and played in other places. And he goes, John Allen plays harder than any defensive tackle I've ever played against in my life. Practicing against him is miserable. It sucks. Like, it's so good because I get to get better every day, but it sucks going against that guy because he plays so hard every single snap. And if you get that kind of effort from your leaders, that can translate not only into, obviously, good play. Playing hard is a prerequisite to success in this league because no one's good enough to, half bake an attempt and come out with a fully cooked meal. But it also is the kind of thing that you look at, that guy next to you and he's going to go hard. You're not going to let your brother down. And so there's a lead by example element of how hard he plays that I think has a trickle down effect to the rest of the team, and especially considering the go hard play style that Dan Quinn wants to implement, that is a perfect fit. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Kurt in Hagerstown. Kurt, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. Hey, Kurt.
Hey, Hoffman, man, big fan, first time caller.
Appreciate it. All right, so who's your second most important commander? Of course, the first being Jayden Daniels.
I'm going to go outside the box a little bit. I'm going to say Quan Martin.
Okay.
Especially with the Quan Martin.
Yeah. Why Quan?
I'm going to say him because the defensive back being like the weak link right now from what I see. I think he's our best corner, our best cover guy. And if they use him the way I would use him, which is kind of like Saren Steele's your nickel corner, but Quan's kind of like that free safety that can go down and play nickel corner. He can play outside. He can kind of do it all. And I see him doing that on one side, Saren Steele doing that on the other side, and kind of like being the quarterbacks for the defensive backs. I see a lot of safeties on the field with Chin and Defoe because they're just powerhouses. They can play that shallow intermediate and have our two, best nickel guys kind of making the calls. And this way it kind of takes a lot of pressure off of a St. Juice and Forbes on the outside. I wouldn't put him on the top receiver ever, man. If anything, I would put Quan on somebody like A.J. Brown, and I'd have Defoe rolling over to that side every time and put Forbes or St. Juice on everybody's number two.
Kurt, it's an interesting thought, and I just don't think realistically we're going to see Quan matched up on the outside on anybody. But I do like your point a lot. I appreciate your call about the idea that we think of Sanders still as the nickel and Quan is the free safety, and to be very clear, I think they're going to play mostly those roles. But the way a lot of these defenses work now, they kind of rock and roll is what they call it, the safeties. And you could do that around Jeremy Chin in a way that's really interesting, where you could just kind of say, hey, Mike Sanderstill, you're really smart. And if there's a late motion and a down, we might just have Quan assume the nickel role and you roll out of that. And there's rules to how that would go down that you could accomplish with this personnel. It's an interesting thought. It's one that I'm sure has crossed Joe Jr.'s mind. But I think Quan also, realistically, because Mikey is going to be playing the nickel and who am I thinking? Chin is going to be playing a lot in the box. Quan's going to wind up playing a lot of deep safety, and I am very curious about his range back there. I know that he's fast. I know that he's instinctual. He's physical. There's so much to like. But in a way, I do almost like him more as kind of a, hey, heads up over a tight end kind of guy, as opposed to I'm covering the middle third of the field with a bunch of range. That is an area where I've got questions. That doesn't mean that I don't think he can do it. We haven't seen it before. I do think there'll be a lot of three safety looks, and the third safety will be Percy Butler, not necessarily Defoe. And Butler has that kind of range, that 4.3 speed over the top. But it is going to be interesting. One of my most fascinating things for this year, one of my biggest questions is how they deploy these defensive backs. And Quan plays an enormously important cog in that. So if you want to say he's the most important player on the defense, I think he was number 4 on our list or something like that. He was high up there on the list that we did towards the start of training camp. So I don't mind that call at all. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Dominic, who's got another DB. Dominic, who do you think is the second most important commander this year behind Jayden Daniels?
Hey, Craig, thanks for taking the call as always.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, for me, it's Emmanuel Forbes. This and the reason why is you have basically put a target, on him. Now, you on the last depth chart, you made him number 1. So, he's going into to me, a make or break year, and you cannot ask Jayden Daniels on the offense to score 30 plus points a game. It's not going to work that way. And if you do, because you can't keep up with number 1 receivers, I mean, you're going to see it Sunday with Mike Evans, a guy who has 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. If he's burning you over the top, it's going to be a long day on Sunday. It's going to be a long day against Jamar Chase on Monday night. It's going to be a long day against CD. The list goes on. So my guy is Emmanuel Forbes, and he's got to come. He's got to show. He's got to be that one of those top corners. Right now, we don't have a number one corner. On paper, we don't.
Sure.
And if we don't, it's going to be a long year.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing, Dominic. Like, I hear you, and thanks for your call, as always. I think it's thoughtful. I think it's smart. I don't think it's irrational. I just think that I don't know that fans here that watch mostly the Commanders and don't watch as intently other places realize how much scheme matters and how much coaching matters to defensive backs. I would argue that it is more important to defensive backs than any other position on the defense. Like, at the end of the day, yes. Can you enhance pass rushers greatly by how you utilize them? Absolutely. Can you give linebackers really easy to execute responsibilities or stupidly hard and confusing and really overwhelming in terms of the grass that they have to cover responsibilities? Yeah, you can. But like, eventually a team's going to run duo and or some inside zone, and a linebacker's going to have to get downhill, get off a block, and make a tackle. And that's a huge part of their responsibility, is to not let that stuff get out into the third level of the defense, and really to be at or behind the line of scrimmage to make tackles. If you're a DB, you are so reliant on the responsibilities that you're given by your coaches and the positions they put you in. And we can talk about the lack of technique soundness that Emmanuel Forbes had last year, but a huge part of that is he was being asked to do too much. We need you to cover the flat and the in and the out and deep and the post. And by the way, be wary of that bubble screen, and we need you to run support. Like, there's too many things that they were being asked to do by the corners last year. And I think just by the nature of simplifying responsibilities, they will be so much better this year. And Joe Witt Jr., I think, has an understanding of where some of the limitations are, and there will be safety help over the top. They will play some cover two looks that they have bounced in and out of with Dan Quinn over the years. He's used to play all single high in Seattle, went to a lot of cover two. Now he's back to some more mix. I think they will mix up their coverages quite a bit. And are there going to be situations where you're in man-to-man? Sure. But how do you marry that with your pressure packages? And I think that this staff understands that better, which is ultimately why my guy, to bring it all the way back, is Luvu. He's got to be an impact pass rusher. And if he's not, I don't know that they have someone else who can be. Dorrance Armstrong is obviously the next best guy, probably. Dante Fowler could have a nice year because he's a professional pass rusher. We'll see what happens with Jamin and obviously Javonte Jean-Baptiste. But, like, they have got to get pressure. And if they do that, which they didn't have a plan for last year, their blitz package stunk. They never did anything up front. No twists, no games. It was just straight rush 4. We have these 4 hosses. We think they can get home. They didn't help them. What happens if you help your pass rush? What happens if you use Quan Martin and Jeremy Chin as blitzers? Like, these are the things that need to happen to make Emmanuel Forbes a better player and to make Benjamin St-Juste a better player. There's stuff they have to do too, but the circumstances matter a lot, and the circumstances are a lot better this year. When we get back, Dan Pizzuta is going to join us. He used to write for Sharp Football, now writes for the 33rd Team, does a great job covering the league. We'll get his first impressions of the Commanders, as Dan's going to join us throughout the year. We'll get his first impressions of the Commanders, kind of a baseline expectation. Plus, we'll take our first dive into the game tonight, game tomorrow. NFL is here. We're talking about it on your home for everything football, the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980, and it's Dan Day. That's Anthony. Did you know that it's Dan Day on the Hoffman Show?
Now that you've said that, it makes sense. So yes.
Yeah, Dan Orlovsky is going to join us coming up at 5 o'clock. But right now, it is our pleasure to welcome in Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd team. He's a writer. I've read a bunch of stuff over the years at other places, including Sharp Football. He's now with the 33rd team. And the plan is, Dan, for you to join us all year long. So welcome to your maiden voyage on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's just put it all out there. We'll get to some of the games, the primetime game tonight, tomorrow night, league-wide stuff in a second. But we got to get the fan base, the listenership, a base here of where you are on the home team. Because I think what's interesting, Dan, in covering this team is there's a lot of like rumblings within the league or certain insiders, certain writers that are really high on the Commanders, that they really like Jayden Daniels. They believe some of the hype that's coming out of Ashburn. Then there's others that are like, this team was 4-12 last year or 4-13, and they still stink. Where are you on the they still stink to believing the hype meter when it comes to the Washington Commanders entering 2024?
This might be a slightly boring answer, but it's somewhere in between, I think. I think there are a lot of things to like, and I do believe when you kind of look at what Jayden Daniels can bring to this offense, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we just kind of saw that in the first preseason game where we had that big thrill. Some of my concerns are going to be what this offensive structure is and how well the Cliff Kingsbury offense fits with what Jayden Daniels does, because I think we also saw there were a lot of, screens and RPOs. And if I kind of have some like PTSD of what Kingsbury was in Arizona, it was a lot of like horizontal throws that didn't necessarily take advantage of a quarterback's big arm. But I'm expecting a very good run game because I think Cliff can design that. I think that's going to help with Jayden Daniels and a lot of the things that they have on the ground in Washington now. The defense is going to be interesting because they brought in a lot of veterans. Whether that's going to be good, I'm not totally sure, but I also don't expect it to be a unit that is so based on miscommunication like it really was the past couple of years. So I think there's definitely a baseline there. So I think just kind of how this offense gels early in the season, I think is going to really be what the ceiling of this Washington team can be for the 2024 season.
Dan, I don't know if you were trying to be funny there, but the line, this is a defense based off miscommunication, so perfectly describes the Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio era that it almost moves me to tears. You mentioned the PTSD from Cliff in Arizona and a lot of the screens, and we've definitely seen a lot of that in camp. You never know what to believe in the preseason because everything's so vanilla, but it's certainly something that we saw in training camp, and I think will be a big part of this. Screens can be great. It's a way to get the protect your quarterback, get the ball out of his hands. Obviously, there's some risk there. What is it about Cliff's screen game that you didn't necessarily like the deployment of, or that you hope evolves into a better version in DC with Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, it's very static, and I think that's kind of one of the things about Cliff's offense in general, where he is going to use pace a lot, and I think we saw that in Arizona, where it was a lot of hurry up, but that also stops things from moving a lot before the snap. We see a lot of offenses now, like a Miami. They're all motion. That's how they use. That is their kind of secret weapon in the ways they are going to keep defenses off balance. And Cliff Kingsbury likes to use pace, so everything is going to go fast. But that does not leave a lot of time for players to be moving around before the snap between plays. So it's very static, and it keeps everyone in the same spots. And then when you just look at what the horizontal type of stretch is in that offense, it's not really, pushing a lot of things into the intermediate area, which is one of the things where, that was a concern of whether Jayden Daniels read the middle of the field in the intermediate area that well in college. And, you really don't blame him because he never really needed to when you can throw a slough fade to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. down the sidelines outside the numbers. You don't really need to be living in the middle of the field all that often. But this is also, it's not an offense that I think from what we've seen with Cliff, that it's going to be opening up that area, schematically and in the structure of the offense. So I just think there are areas of the field that are very valuable that just don't get pushed as much in a Cliff Kingsbury offense, at least from what we've seen in Arizona. I don't know if this is something that, he's been working on a little bit, but the USC offense last year when he was, very involved in that passing game also kind of left Caleb Williams with a lot of things that like he needed to be out of structure because the structure of the offense wasn't all that great. So I'm not super optimistic, but there are things that I did like about it. But I just think we need to see a little more expansion of what some of those passing concepts are going to be in order for this passing game to really work well.
Dan Pizzuta of the 33rd team with us here on the Hoffman Show. One kind of lingering question that we're not going to have a distinctive answer to until November by definition is, can Cliff evolve? Because he is notoriously a hot starter, and then teams seem to figure it out, and his teams have failed down the stretch. Texas Tech, Arizona, on down the list. What is it that teams latch onto, and how do other really good offensive coordinators avoid that final, let's call it third or final quarter of the season rut that Kingsbury has routinely found himself in?
Yeah, I think it kind of ends up being something where when something doesn't work, I think he kind of falls back on the things that he does believe are going to be the staples. And kind of like I said, when you're using pace as the thing that you are using as your mismatch, if there's only a certain set of plays really that you're going to be able to run from that. So if you are running kind of the same things over and over and over, defenses then by the end of the year are going to be able to kind of get a sense of what those plays are going to be, how those plays are going to be targeted, and you kind of set the defense to stopping some of the concepts. So, and then the pace later in the year, if you don't really have those change-ups, is going to be something that isn't as advantageous as you get later into the year. So the thing about Cliff is he does like come into the season with some very like cool things, and there usually are a couple of change ups in those first few weeks of the season. But again, as whether it's an injury or something, because sometimes those did pop up in Arizona too. So they were kind of just working with what they could work with, and then the just expansion of the offense just wasn't as much as you would kind of like to see. So if they can kind of stay healthy, they see some things that maybe should be able to allow them to build on what this offense is going to be, then maybe there's, some change and he can evolve within the season. But that's something like you said, we're not going to be able to know until October, November. And that's something I'm going to want to see a little bit before I believe in it.
Dan Pizzuta, 33rd team with us. One Commanders defensive question, or I guess it's quasi-Commanders. It certainly applies, but it is kind of leaning on your knowledge of league trends, Dan, is the volatility at the cornerback position, which the Commanders fans are hoping strikes the uptick this year in Washington after a brutal season last year for Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes. But when you look around the league and try to suss out the impact that coaching has both schematically and technique-wise, clarity of assignment, all those kinds of things on the cornerback position. Would you agree with me if I said that position is more subject to coaching than anything else on defense? And then if you do agree with that, is that ultimately a good sign for the Commanders in 2024?
Yeah, I think you probably could say that because I think it does depend a lot on, how these cornerbacks are taught and, what they're really expected to do in coverage. Like you said, I think when you kind of go back to what, Dan Quinn did with Dallas, I think he did encourage his corners to be very aggressive and kind of be aggressive and jump some routes. And I think we saw that, when Trayvon Diggs had a lot of interceptions in his big year 2022. We saw that with Deron Bland last year. So I think that is certainly a coaching point when you see two players like that who are very similar styles, which it did give up some very big plays when being that aggressive did not work on the other end of that. But I think there's going to be, a hit and miss there. And when you have some of those big plays in the turnovers and you can create those, I do think that does help. So that is going to be one of the things that's really interesting with, I think, this cornerback room. Like, I did like Emmanuel Forbes a lot coming out in college. He was a physical corner that I think just kind of was a little hesitant in how he was going to play, how physical he could be. And I do think that the coaching style of what the secondary is going to be asked for should help a little bit. And that definitely is, a position that just in general, because coverage is so reactive, like you can do a lot of things well and still give up a reception. That's why, especially when you look at like coverage stats and things, it's very hard to be good in coverage for a sustained period of time, even for some of the best cornerbacks in the league. So I do think coaching does play a part, and I do think some of the coaching in Washington should help the guys that are currently on that Commanders team.
Well, certainly can't hurt based off last year. Certainly, there literally is no room to go down. Okay, tonight you got Ravens, Chiefs, NFL season opener. I think this is these teams are fascinating. The Chiefs arguably have more talent than they've had in the entire Mahomes era, and they're the two-time defending champions. Meanwhile, you got the Ravens bringing in Derrick Henry and, the change up at the coordinator defensively as Mike McDonald goes to Seattle. So there's some pretty significant changes on not only with him, but down the staff. They lost a couple other guys as well. Anthony Weaver leaving for Miami. If you look at it from the Baltimore side, the addition of Henry does what for Lamar Jackson coming off of an MVP season? Obviously, it's hard to play a lot better, but how does the offense functionally change with that kind of back next to him?
Yeah, I think it really opens up a lot for both of those players involved. If you're sitting in, shotgun or pistol, which I think, Baltimore will use a little more of, it's going to be tempting to sit in a heavy box for this defense because you do want to stop the run. But if that's going to be the case, then you're going to have these one-on-ones on the outside that we know Lamar can take advantage of, or that's going to leave some room to scramble if he's kind of able to do that too. But if you're a little scared of what Jackson can do in the run and you're going to play a little off, you're going to use the light box. Which I think we saw kind of the Ravens, because light boxes and things like that are really personnel set. If you're using 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers and you're spreading those guys out, it's going to be difficult for defense to stack the box. So if the Ravens are going to be in that personnel, be a little wider, and then you have a light box for Derrick Henry, there's going to be a lot of room there for him to be running too. So I think it's just going to give them a little more balance, and they don't have to be too forced into one thing that they have to do, which I think they kind of have been in the past a little bit, especially when there wasn't really the wide receivers working quite as well as they had been. So I just think having those two players in the backfield together, and then when you start looking at the zone read and read options, like I think it's kind of impossible for a defense to guess right when there's going to be either a handoff to Henry or a keeper from Lamar Jackson. There's really no right answer there for a defense. So I just think the dynamic they have in the run game is really going to help, and I think that's going to end up really opening up some of the things they can do in the passing game, off play action in the middle of the field. And I really think that's just going to be a dynamic group that they have there.
Yeah, and of course, Mark Andrews, one of their best targets, occupying that space there in the middle. Same kind of concept in a different way on the other side for years now, teams have been like, we are not giving up deep stuff to Mahomes. Last year, they started to clamp down a little bit more on Travis Kelce. It took the Chiefs a while, but they eventually figured it out. Dan, there are D coordinators making 7 figures trying to figure out what the heck to do with the Chiefs. I figure we might as well just give our advice for free on the radio. If you are Baltimore tonight and everyone else in the AFC West and on the Chiefs schedule moving forward, like what is the thing? I know there was it Matabike or someone the other day that was like, oh, we just got to make him one-dimensional. And it's like, yeah, good luck with that with Mahomes and the way Andy Reid's calling plays and designs an offense and as good as he is. But if there's one thing that you just absolutely cannot let happen against the Chiefs, what's that thing?
Oh man! Now, like you said, if I had one good answer for that, I think I'd be making a lot more money than I would be.
Hey man, plans are easy. Executing's hard. Hey, this. If you just do this, you didn't do the thing that I said. That's the beauty of our jobs is there's no actual consequences for our analysis.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things with Mahomes is you just cannot really let him settle into knowing what you're doing on defense. And I think we've seen with some of the better defenses that have been able to kind of slow him down, right? Because you don't stop Mahomes. You just really, it's the whole, you can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. It really is true. And I think the Ravens kind of did that in a little bit in the second half of the AFC Championship game last year. And it's a lot of just kind of changing the picture. They did a lot of those, simulated pressures, which you're showing, 5 or 6 guys on the line of scrimmage. You're showing a blitz, but only 4 come. But they're not necessarily the 4 that you believe would come, in a more traditional pass rush. So you're changing up some of those looks. Cincinnati back a couple years ago when they were able to kind of slow Mahomes down a little bit, it was a lot of you were either blitzing or you were dropping 8, only rushing 3. So I think it's a lot of changing up those looks and never just settling into one thing that Mahomes can really figure out. Because once he does that, he's a guy who will, sit and over the past couple of seasons when teams are starting to play too high, he'll sit and just pick you apart. He'll have one of the lowest ADOTs in the league if he needs to, and do that. But then if you're going to be aggressive and you have those downfield, he'll have those, plays out of structure where he'll make something happen down the field. So if you can just kind of change up a lot of the looks, and I think, a team like Baltimore, and we'll see what they bring from the McDonald defense into this year, because I think, schemes like that will certainly help, and things like we saw from what Cincinnati is doing. Those are the type of defenses that I think will, help slow him down. But again, there's really no stopping him because he just, figures out a right answer for everything eventually.
Dan Pizzuta, 33rd team with us here on the Hoffman Show. Going to join us on Thursdays all season long. We got a Friday football game to talk about this week, though, Dan. That we won't have many of those. Eagles and Packers. And my simple question is, are you up or down on the Eagles? I'm gonna leave it open ended. Are you up or down on the Eagles?
I'm hesitant. I will say that. I would really like to see how both sides of the ball really play out for them, because you bring in 2 new coordinators, but neither one of them were relatively successful in where they were last year. I think there are going to be some, more interesting things with Kellen Moore that we will see for this offense that will help them out. I'm just not sure what this defense is going to be from, personnel-wise. They're just not as deep at pass rusher as, they used to be over the past few years. Corner is going to be very highly volatile also. So they are just kind of a wait-and-see team for me also to see really how these 2 new philosophies on each side of the ball are really going to match for them this season.
So I'm a big, the vibes are just off. There's something wrong there with Sirianni and Hurts, and there just seems to be a disconnect. They're stupid talented, and it might all work out. I just look at them as opposed to the cohesion and everything that's going on in Green Bay, LaFleur's ability to just create a building where everybody seems to be able to succeed. As you've done this over the course of your years, so much of what you've done, and obviously when you were with Sharp, super duper numbers, Jason, and looking into data, and that is so valuable. How often do you take a step back in your analysis and just be like, I like vibes here, and not to go full vibes guy, but to go like, okay, some of these numbers might not wind up adding up because there's something in the building that isn't working.
Yeah, sure. And I think that's, I feel like, not to go full vibes, like you said, but, it's always kind of marrying, some of those numbers and the context of what brings it. And yeah, like you said, especially over the back half of last season, it's just, this doesn't seem great. But then you kind of look at, if you are going to be a little more optimistic, you look at all of the things that went wrong for them. And, Jalen Hurts was still a top 10 quarterback by like EPA per play, which is something that I think you can build on a little bit. So, but like, because they have all of that talent, you still do have some of these outs that have a much higher margin for error, right? When you're throwing to an A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and now you add a Saquon Barkley, you have Dallas Goedert, that is still a stacked offense. So you do have a much larger margin for error when even if things aren't completely going right, because just by the talent alone, they should still be able to make plays. But yeah, like you said, I think there's a lot of work that kind of needs to be done for you to like really feel good about what these Eagles are going to be this year.
All right, Dan, before we let you go, are you up for a little sports radio fun here?
Sure.
Okay, so as I was putting together the graphic that we've been putting up on the YouTube stream while you're talking, I came across a profile that I'm like, that looks like a young Dan. Do I have it correct that you were a gymnast at the Temple University?
Yes, I was.
That is one incredible. Like, I have so much as a fitness athletic person myself. I have so much respect for the what gymnasts can do. But my dumb sports radio question is: at your absolute peak, how many pull-ups could you do?
Oh, probably a lot. I don't know if I ever, fully maxed out on pull-ups.
Yeah.
But a usual, type of workout probably would have been, as part of a workout would have been at least, 3 sets of, 25. So, you're looking at, quite a bit. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that I was doing, was with body weight. So, I wasn't, when I was working out in that fashion, it wasn't a lot of, max benching or things.
Of
so
course.
it was a lot of body weight. So yeah, it was doing a lot of, pull-ups and push-ups and things like that. So probably a higher number than maybe like I would have been able to do just in terms of like straight weightlifting.
Yeah. So Anthony, have you ever done 25 straight pull-ups in your life?
In high school.
In high school? Okay. I feel like when I was like 8, because you don't weigh anything when you're 8, and you're just like, you're a dumb elementary school kid, and you're doing the test, and you're like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3. Definitely cannot do 25. That is impressive. Dan, I will come up with more dumb questions in our interviews and hopefully smart ones at the beginning. This was great, and very much look forward to doing this all season long. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, fantastic. I appreciate you having me on.
That's Dan Pizzuta, everybody. He's with the 33rd team. They do a great job. They have all kinds of former execs and coaches and also a great slew of writers, including Dan and his colleagues. I enjoyed that, Anthony. I'm excited to talk to Dan all season long. He's really smart.
Nah, he really is. And he has a lot of good energy.
Yeah, great energy.
Love
I was almost like, how we can save like what was the longest you ever did a handstand question for next week?
Oh, yeah. He got
Could you do a handstand period?
I can do a handstand. Not for a long time, though.
Should we put that on our punishment list? You have to try to do a handstand.
You've never attempted to do one?
I mean, I've attempted to do it. I'm saying, but like, we should add dumb human tricks to our potential punishments for our Competition Wednesday picks.
I think you do 10 handstand push-ups with your feet against the wall.
Oh, that's just got to make sure we don't do it right after we eat.
Yeah.
That could be bad. Okay, that's enough of that. More smart football talking from people named Dan next. For Not My Beat today, ladies and gentlemen, in 5 minutes, Dan Orlovsky. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 5:30, never read the comments, our final preseason edition, some thoughts on some of the predictions we made, and then 6 o'clock hour, it is time for all of the predictions. Yeah, we're going to go through each division, pick our winner. We're running out of time because the NFL opens tonight, Ravens, Chiefs, here on the Team 980, courtesy of Westwood One. But yeah, we're going to pick every division winner. We're going to pick Super Bowl winner. We're going to pick MVP, Offensive Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Defensive Rookie of the Year. You know the deal. So 6 o'clock is prediction hour. But right now, man, nothing better to welcome in football season than one of our smartest friends of the show. It is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Joining us now here on the day that football is back, it's our friend Dan Orlovsky from ESPN. Of course, you can watch him on NFL Live and every other NFL show or NFL adjacent show that they have. Dano, it's back. Football's here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. You know, as excited as anybody that football's back. It's funny going through the summer, you know, so often see people and they're like, man, can't wait. We're getting close to football coming back. You know, I can't wait. And I'm always like, nah, you know what? It can hold off, you know, because the season is so long. But now that it's here, obviously wildly excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jayden Daniels will make his pro debut this weekend against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a heck of a challenge. Before we get to that game specifically, what have you seen from Jayden throughout the preseason and in talking to anybody that you know around the building that has either confirmed some of the things that you were excited about with Daniels coming out of the draft or maybe even surprised you one way or the other about him as he heads into his debut?
Yeah, I think when you see the reports of how he's performed in camp and how he's carried himself and the leadership element and the work ethic, it makes you feel great about some of the, at least the beliefs that you had in the young man, certainly me personally. And then you watch some of the, albeit small sample size in the preseason, but you know, obviously the throw down the field, down the right sideline against the Jets was beautiful in week one. And then some of the throws against Miami with the ball placement and really putting it on the right shoulder because that was certainly a strength of his. And so while it being a small body of work, you know, it's nice to see that the stuff that I felt was really the strength of his game in college easily showed itself in the NFL. And I understand it's simplified in the preseason, but it's nice to see that. And so everything you hear about the young man is in a positive fashion and the excitement behind kind of what he's shown so far on a day-to-day basis. So I'm wildly excited for him and in Washington and kind of seeing, you know, how quickly he can get up to speed at the NFL level.
So one thing that I've talked about quite a bit since the draft is something that you said like the week of the draft when you came on the show that all of a sudden kind of shape-shifted the way I was looking at Daniels and really like took my excitement about him to another level, which is you thought he had the best eyes in the draft. And I think about actually a play where he throws the ball out of bounds against Miami when he sees that they messed up the protection on the blitz and he throws it over McLaurin's head. Yep, exactly. Yep. And so to see that come to life, my question for you, Dan, is like, what's the difference doing that in a preseason? Because that was a game where Miami had a little bit more in, but it's still not real regular season NFL football. Everything is so vanilla now in the preseason. What is the difference in doing that in the preseason or in camp versus what he's going to face, especially against a blitz master in Todd Bowles on Sunday?
Yeah, I think, specifically in general, during the preseason, it's great that you see it, and it's great that you don't take the hit and you throw it away. But there's no negative consequence to that result. The difference is in the regular season, you know, the wins and losses matter. You know, the not converting on third down matters. The not hurting a defense doing it matters. And that's really the philosophy when you're playing against teams that pressure you defensively. Offensively, there's one of two things. You can either protect against it, meaning, hey, we just want to make sure bad stuff doesn't happen. So it's get the ball to your hands. You could throw it away, or you could check to a play, maybe get to a perimeter screen, something like that, or you could try and hurt it. Hey, if you're going to blitz me and I feel like I got a beat on it, I'm going to try to hurt you. I'm trying to gut you. And so, you really want to live in the world of trying to gut teams. You got to have the right people. You got to have the right quarterback and the right perimeter players to do it. And so it's great that happens in the preseason and you show that, okay, I saw it, but it doesn't matter that, oh man, it's a third down and we're out of field goal range or something like that. In the regular season, it will. And so I think that's really what you want to see is, can you really, make those impactful plays when they matter and games are on the line? And he's going to get a baptism by fire, no question, week 1 against Todd Bowles.
So what is it that makes, in your mind, Bowles' blitz package so, I don't know if you'd call it unique, special, rare. Like,
Yep.
I don't know if he's one of, you would say like, oh, he's one of one, or, one of the best of a certain tree. But what makes it so dang hard to play against? I'll phrase it that way.
Yeah, options, variety, and it's almost like if you take an offensive football and if everyone closes their eyes and they think of the Kyle Shanahan offense or the Matt LaFleur offense, there's so much that comes off of one formation or one action. And that's what causes the defense to play so hesitant. And it's the same way with Todd Bowles as a blitz guy. He'll give pressure-wise and coverage-wise that can come off of it. And he'll run the same pressure in 2 different ways with 2 different coverages. And you sit there and go, well, the last time you showed me this look, you brought those 2 blitzers and you played man coverage, but this time you put that same look in those same 2 blitzers, but you played cover 2 behind it. And so it's just the options that he has off of very similar looks, and that forces when you're playing against blitz, it takes everybody. It's not just the quarterback. So you got to have everybody in your offensive line seeing it the same way and executing it the same way. And your receivers got to see it the same way and executing it. And the same with your backs. And if one person's wrong, your quarterback gets their head taken off or he's running for his life. And so that's really the biggest challenge is you got to get all 11 on the same page. And they force you to do it in a really quick amount of time. And you got to think really at a high and efficient level. And so I think that's the big challenge, Craig. And then I would say this, what's going to be the one of the most interesting parts in this game is we saw a sprinkle of tempo in the preseason from this offense. Cliff's done it in his past. Jayden's obviously done it in college. How much are they going to do it? And when they're doing it, 2 things. One, how much does that calm down some of the blitzing from Bowles? It will a little bit, but not that much. And, you can have a tendency as a quarterback when you play with tempo, you can think that you're not going to get pressure or exotics. And I think Washington will. And how does Jayden in tempo handle that stuff in a calm manner? I think that's going to be huge this weekend.
Dan Orlovsky, ESPN NFL analyst with us here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. So how can Cliff help that? Obviously, he can get in his headset and be like, hey, remember, it's still Todd Bowles calling defenses. You're going to get pressure. There's the kind of that mental preparation. But then schematically, obviously, there's stuff he can do as well. Knowing Cliff's offense like you do, having studied it with the intensity that you have, what are some of the things that you think are on the table as options to help insulate Jayden this weekend?
Yeah, I think changing your tempo is a big deal. Not just playing fast, but sometimes playing super fast, sometimes playing fast, sometimes playing kind of at a medium pace, sometimes getting there and taking your time and trying to gather information and making sure that, you can use that in-head communication, as long as possible. I think the second thing is, make sure that everyone's really greased in their rules. Sometimes early on in the season, you can get yourself into trouble if you're constantly chasing perfection in these situations. But really just, what are the rules of this protection? I don't care what the defense is saying or not. What is the rule? Okay, if that person blitzes, he's not blocked for. And making sure that you're not trying to chase perfection early on. I think the more that you can get the ball out in some type of perimeter screen, the better, especially, with downs that you might anticipate a pressure. So let's live in the world where it's 2nd and 8. Don't wait till 3rd down to call that screen. Get it out in 2nd down and see if you can hurt that defense with an easy decision and a mental break for Jayden. So I think those are the big things, is making sure that you're not stressing him. You're not stressing that offensive line too much.
All right, Dan, I'm going to try to ask a nerdy football question without losing the audience here. So bear with me for just a moment as I explain. running the football sounds easy. It's like block the guy ahead of you. But when teams install runs, they have to account for all the different alignments that a defense is going to throw at them. So that, of course, is good so far explaining this to the audience. The challenge, I think, this weekend for this run game for Washington is they have practiced mostly against a 4-down front, their own front throughout all of training camp. The Jets play some 3, the Dolphins play some 3 down, but Tampa plays a lot of 3-down fronts, and they move guys around, and it's super tricky to kind of target those runs. As a quarterback, as an offensive line, Tyler Biadasz has a lot on his plate. That's the long windup, Dan, to how hard is it in your experience, having played and studied the game, playing for 12 years, all that kind of stuff, to do that, especially in week 1 coming out of training camp where you get in a rhythm of doing against your own guys and the slight sprinkle of a joint practice, because running the football obviously is something this team wants to do, and doing it, it's not that you can't run on Tampa, it's just you got to do it differently. How hard is that adjustment in week 1?
Yeah, it's a big time challenge, and then you throw in the reality that you just can't replicate a Vita Vea. You just can't, no matter how hard you try. So I think a couple of things are really important in that conversation. Number one, I've always believed 3-4 defenses were harder in any element to prepare for, just because it's the numbers. There's 4 people off the ball more often, so there's more movement. So there's that reality, and so teams do a really good job of understanding. Really good coaches do a good job of understanding, okay, there's plays that we won't run. We just will not call them versus 3-4 defenses, and vice versa. So a 3-4 defense, you kind of want to try to live a little bit more on running the ball inside, because you have those off-the-ball linebackers. And 4-3 defenses, you want to try to at times get the ball on the outside. So I think you try to make sure that you're paying attention to that if you're Cliff Kingsbury and understanding this is what they're going to try and do. Now, again, the Vita Vea element of that is the big challenge. So is it trying to run it inside and always making sure that they're double teaming him? I think that's paramount. Number 2, during practices, again, well-coached football teams will make sure even in a good versus good situation, you could have the conversation. And what I mean by that is starter versus starters. Cliff Kingsbury can go to Dan Quinn and say, like, hey, during this run period, can you only get into 3-4 formations for us? I want to, take this run period on August 18th, and we're going to really work on our run game versus 3-4. So you can try to bank some reps against that stuff and see what you're good at and see what you're not good at, and then your guys have recall. So there are certainly plays that you won't call run game-wise because of just the base defensive formation from Tampa.
No doubt. And I also do wonder defensively for Washington with Jerzon Newton in the fold, assuming that he's healthy, like, do they get to a point this year where, especially if Jamin Davis can continue to make the progress on the edge, like with him, Dante Fowler, Frankie Louvu, like, do they go 3 down in Washington? That could be a thing defensively for them that they have in their back pocket that they haven't shown yet. Last thing for Dan Orlovsky here, of course, NFL analyst for ESPN, is that Washington defense. Baker, obviously had a great year last year under Canales. He leaves, takes the head coaching job in Carolina. Liam Cohen comes in as the offensive coordinator, last in the NFL in 2022 with Sean and the Rams. How do you think what Cohen's background is matches up with the success that Baker's had, not just last year, but the last year he had in Cleveland under Kevin Stefanski as well?
Yeah, I expect them to not skip a beat offensively. If you go and Baker, the last 2 seasons that he's played healthy, he's a pretty darn good player. And most of his career has been in the scheme that Liam Cohen is going to call. Liam cut his teeth a little bit from the Sean McVay tree. To your point, he's been part of that organization a couple times. And so that's what Kevin Stefanski runs. That's obviously what he ran in Cleveland. He ran it with the Rams. Canales was a little bit less, but, Canales having a little bit of time in Seattle, had somewhat of a background on it. So I think that you'll see this football team offensively in Tampa be a little bit more like Cleveland Baker's offense, which more play action, more crossers, more trying to hit chunks. You're still going to live in a little bit of the drop back shotgun game that Canales brought because of their perimeter players, McMillan being the addition from Washington this year as well. So this offense will probably be a 80% what he ran in Cleveland and 20% what Canales did with them.
Makes sense. Dan Orlovsky, ESPN NFL analyst. You can watch him on NFL Live, on Get Up, on SportsCenter, on all the other programs. You guys got a lot of them up there. The whole worldwide leader thing. Nice wide swath of programming. Dan's on all of it, of course, talking ball. Always appreciate your time here on the show, man, and we'll talk to you again later in the season.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Never read the comments at 5:30, and we pick everything. Every division winner, conference winners, Super Bowl winners, MVP, all of it coming up in the 6 o'clock hour as the Ravens and Chiefs kick off the NFL season tonight. But Anthony Haney, hey, you over there. If at any point in the last 10 years, I said, name one women's soccer player, who would you have said?
There's a couple.
Okay, you're a little more locked in than the average bear.
Okay, Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan.
Yep. That's really probably
Julie Ertz.
Okay, Julie. Wow, that's a deep cut for most people.
And the goalie was Solo.
Yeah,
Hope Solo.
apparently some really bizarre Netflix documentary just came out on her. Not a good time.
Never mind.
But for most people,
Scratch that one.
Pino and Alex Morgan would have been the two. And frankly, I think Alex Morgan would probably win that popularity contest by a lot. And that made it quite surprising when all of a sudden, today, I'm just out there perusing the old Twitter timeline. And lo and behold, all of a sudden there's a post from Alex Morgan. Actually, I was on Instagram first when I saw this. Post from Alex Morgan. It just says, thank you, has heart hands. And this is what it said.
I'm going to get to the point quickly. I'm retiring, and I have so much clarity about this decision, and I'm so happy to be able to finally tell you. It has been a long time coming, and this decision wasn't easy, but at the beginning of 2024, I felt in my heart and soul that this was the last season.
And thus, Alex Morgan is retiring. And this was something that I think it sounds like she was planning to do at the end of the season. However, later in that 4.5-minute post, Anthony, she shared that she and her husband are, well, she really is the one who carries the literal weight here. She is pregnant with her second child. So Charlie, the beloved Morgan child, who is grown up in front of America's eyes as being a terrorist in post-game interviews of the cutest variety. She's going to be a big sister, which is awesome. And Alex Morgan's last game is suddenly this weekend. Her second to last game was last weekend against the Spirit. I actually talked to Tara Micchione from the Spirit today about that. That interview will be up on our Women's Sports YouTube page, hopefully by the end of the day. There's a lot going on. Might be up by tomorrow. But, Anthony, my big statement that I would say about Alex Morgan, like the big defining like first page of what used to be like the biography, but now just like the first sentence on Wikipedia, is Alex Morgan is the most important player to the growth of women's soccer in America, which as a sport has probably grown more than any other sport in America in the last 20 years. Alex Morgan is the single most important person in the growth of soccer, and specifically women's soccer in America in the sports history. And that is multifaceted. And some people know about her on-field greatness. She was a part of the 2015 and 2019 World Cup champions. She burst onto the scene as a 23-year-old in the 2011 World Cup, and everyone's like, who's that baby horse out there? That was the nickname she was given because of her running style. Kind of galloped downfield past everybody and came on, scored some important goals. Just an incredible player. She's fifth all-time on the U.S. Women's National Team in goals scored, and one of the all-time leading scorers in the NWSL, a league, by the way, that she's been playing long enough that she played before this league existed. I know because I was there at the last game she played in the old league. Rochester, New York, 2013. No, sorry, 2011. The WPS championship game in front of 10,000 people in Rochester, New York, Anthony. And I was like, this league looks like it has promise coming off the 2019 World Cup. Folded 3 weeks later. And then the NWSL got founded, and Alex spent a lot of her career in Orlando. She was here in 2019 when the Spirit played at Audi Field for the first time, and they sold it out. Eventually went to San Diego. When that expansion team started, she wanted to be back home in California and raise her family there. And people know about the on-field greatness. What I don't know if the average fan knows is how much she did off the field. And obviously the equal pay lawsuit, she was a huge part of all the negotiations and the attention, frankly, because she is someone who, like, Megan Rapinoe is a beloved figure, but she's also polarizing for better or for worse. I'm not here to debate whether you love or hate Megan Rapinoe, but chances are you love or hate Megan Rapinoe. Alex Morgan's approval rating is like 1,000%. And her willingness to lend her voice to that cause, to be out front, to take on people in powerful places on the equal pay lawsuit that U.S. Soccer had or faced from their women's national team was enormous. She also had the literal receipts of emails sent that brought down the last commissioner of the league when she didn't handle a complaint against a coach of sexual abuse properly. Alex Morgan, it wasn't just some player that had email receipts. It was Alex freaking Morgan who was like, oh, you said that this wasn't reported? You said this wasn't investigated? You tried to brush this aside? No. I'm Alex Morgan. I'm the most famous player in the entire sport, and you're dead now. And that was the end of Lisa Baird as the commissioner of the NWSL. And a lot of really great things, including the first ever collective bargaining agreement for the NWSL players, came out almost directly of Alex Morgan's willingness to be like, I'm going to use my popularity for good. And ultimately, like, to me, that's Morgan's legacy is, yes, inspirational player. There are more little girls and, frankly, little boys wearing number 13 U.S. jerseys than any other jersey in U.S. soccer in the last 20 years. But her willingness to use that fame and popularity for the advancement of things she believed in is the ultimate thing that we want out of our athletes. We want athletes who do good in the world, and Alex Morgan has done a tremendous amount of good in the world, and I have no doubt she will continue to moving forward. She will just do it as a retired player. So salute to you, Alex Morgan. Happy retirement. Best of luck to you and Servando, her husband, and Charlie and their family as they welcome baby number 2 at some point in the future. But yeah, if you want to watch Alex Morgan one more time, Sunday night on, I wonder if it gets picked up by a TV network. Right now it's supposed to just be a streaming game, but 8 o'clock against North Carolina on Sunday night. So yeah, that's the news of the day in soccer world. Outside of the fact that, Anthony, did you hear how Croy Bethune tore her meniscus? It's on around the horn right now.
Yeah, I just looked up, and
she tore it throwing out the first pitch at the Nats game.
I can't even believe it.
I'm so mad, but we'll bite that for another time. It's not anyone's fault. It's just dumb luck. Dumb, stupid, bad, terrible luck. Anyway, apropos of none of that, Never Read the Comments is next. Commanders fans, what do they think of my cautious optimism for the 2024 season? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And once again, being reminded right now about the fact that I get to enjoy the show in a way that literally no one else on the planet does, as Anthony just, like dancing away to the beat that the folks on the radio can hear but can't see Anthony, and the folks on the stream can't hear the beat because the copyrighted music is kept off the internet, but get to see Anthony dancing. What a treat for me.
What a treat. That song also just, I don't know, it gets me going, man. It just gets me going.
That was very reminiscent of, it gets the people going. Anyway,
yeah.
Once the people get going, they get on the internet, they start leaving comments, and then we got to deal with them. It's time.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, this is how this works. We do the show. It's 3 hours long, between 4 and 7. It's live on the Team 980. It's live on the Odyssey app. It's live on 980's YouTube page. And then afterwards, we chop it all up, make it digestible. We take the segments, we take the meat, say, hey, this is what we talked about today. Digestible for you. And you go on the internet, you watch the parts of the show that you missed on demand, and you leave comments. And some of them are funny, some of them insightful, some of them are mean. I typically just delete those because we don't do that. We try to have a nice, welcoming community. And some are interesting enough that we decide to respond to them on the radio, and then we chop that up, and then we put that on demand, and then the cycle repeats itself. And that's kind of how it ends up working. But we call it Never Read the Comments. And we do it 5:30 on Thursdays live. And here we are. So we start with Matthew Hale, which I almost read, Anthony, as Matthew Whale. Matthew Hale, 8958, in response to our segment on the defensive preview. And for some reason, I'd have to go back and listen to what we said. A lot of John Allen trade comments came out of that segment. I was like, did we say something about trading John Allen? We might have, but there was a question that I thought was put forth innocently enough that it was worth answering. Anthony, realistically, do you think we trade Allen at the deadline if Newton shows out in the first half of the season, just trying to see the path forward if playoffs aren't on the table? Here's what I would say. It's possible, because everything outside of like trading Jayden Daniels is possible. I would say it's highly unlikely, right? You need a rotation of guys, first of all. And so if the defense is playing moderately well, it's going to be in part because those three guys, John, Duran, and Johnny, are all playing well. Allen, Payne, Newton, good rotation. They're keeping guys fresh. You know, Allen is not having to play too many snaps because Newton is taking some. Fedarian's probably playing all right ball. And they've hopefully elevated the play of the guys on the outside. They've overcome what is perceived to be a lack of talent. And if they're playing well, that's why I'm phrasing it that way. I certainly have questions there on the edge. But they've overcome that because those inside guys are playing really well. If they're not playing well, if the defense is not playing well at all, then I don't know how high John Allen's trade value is. Realistically, if I was a team that could use a D tackle, maybe I have one of my top guys get hurt. Let's say like Chris Jones goes down, or the Lions lose one of their guys, or like you're one of those top teams and you're like, I think we can get John Allen and it's worth giving up a second-round pick for him. Would Adam Peters listen in the middle of the season if the Commanders aren't playing well? Yes. But I think they had a discussion last offseason. John talked about it on stage with us at the Team 980 versus 106.7 The Fan event, that they had a conversation, and John bought into what they're building, and he wants to be a part of it. I think John Allen's preference would be to retire as a Commander. Realistically, Adam Peters has got to do what's best for the team, and if Newton is crushing it and Allen's playing well, but the team overall is not playing very well, could they say, like, hey, we're going to, like, you have no guaranteed money left. We're just going to go ahead and trade you and let someone else sign you to a new deal, a la what they did last year with the old regime and Montez Sweat? Yeah. And if you're going to get a high second-round pick for that, or a late first even, which seems implausible for a guy his age, but maybe, I think you have to listen if you're Adam Peters. But it's such a fine line to walk, a small needle to thread that I just don't think that is the likely outcome, Anthony.
Yeah. So I don't think we mentioned trade, but for some of the reasons you just named, like he doesn't have any guarantee money like left on this deal. He has one more year. And also, John has expressed that he wants to win. Like, he's tired of losing and, being in a terrible place. So I think that's probably why the YouTube commenter maybe suggested we trade him. But
which, if you think of it as is he an expiring contract? Not really, but kind of, because you probably either re-sign him after the season or you might move on. If you're going to move on, why wouldn't you move on early and get something? It's 100% on the table. I just don't think it's likely because I think that they're going to want him here long term. He's done, and long term is 2 to 3 years, right? But you don't have to pay Jayden Newton for 2 to 3 years. And so you can afford to have a little bit of a surplus there, especially if you're going to build your other expensive positions, mostly through the draft. One, they have a ton of space. 2, they're on a rookie quarterback timeline, which means you have $60 extra million in cap space that you're not spending on the Joe Burrows, the Dak Prescotts, the whoever is making $60 million a year this year, Mahomes, Lamar, all those dudes are 50 plus. And Dak hasn't even gotten paid yet. And I think he's still making 50 this year. So he's going to make 60 plus probably. And so with all that extra money and the fact that hopefully your starting left tackle isn't going to be making big money because it's Brandon Coleman. And, Terry's kind of in a similar situation to John contractually. So we'll see what they do with him financially. But corner, you're either I don't think you're spending huge money there. Edge, there's not a ton of edge rushers that get to the market. So maybe you wind up spending some money there. But realistically, you're probably drafting your future lead edge. So I just think that you have the financial flexibility right now to let John Allen be a part of your team and the culture setter and a part of the spine of your defense that's really valuable, him and Duran, for the next couple of years. So you probably just continue on that path. But if for whatever reason you're man, Newton could be better than Allen, we need to make him the starter, and we think John wants to go, our timeline maybe is a little slower. Maybe as great as Jayden's looked so far, we think it's going to take 3 years to be at the peak of his powers, not a next year situation. Let's get John somewhere where he can maybe be a rotational piece on a championship team, and that team is willing to give you a second-round pick. I think Adam Peters will listen. You have to have John playing at a certain level, Jayden playing at a certain level. We haven't even seen Jayden really play yet. And then you also need to have the team be at the right balance of success and failure that makes it worth it. So it's a tough needle to thread. P. Laurel commented on our chat with Nate Tice from Friday. Big, long chat about Jayden, about offensive, defensive trends in 2024. And I picked this one out, Anthony, because I think it raises an interesting point. I'm admittedly going to get on a small high horse here, but I'm going to try to do it in a way that is not demeaning and talking down. I realize by admitting that I might be getting on a high horse, then people are automatically going to think I'm being arrogant, but that's the nature of the segment. It's an ask for appreciation of intelligence. From P. Laurel, Tice seems to be swimming upstream consistently on the topic of Daniels as a prospect. Forget about his NFL career for now because it hasn't happened yet. But of all the prospects, the most questionable floor is May's. So how is it that Tice is saying May and Williams are the top 2 prospects he's seen in 10 years? I just wish someone would challenge some of the things Tice has said. Really makes me believe he's relying on measurables like size and not film. Practically every great pocket passer suffers a major injury at some point in their careers. Flip through them in your mind. So size, equating to durability, being a major factor in evaluation is ridiculous. I'll give you some credit for leaning McCarthy. He can play. Talking about me there. Going back to my pre-draft evals as if those are still relevant. And then last but not least, this guy sums up his comment. Ironically, he's also the latest pocket passer that has suffered a major injury. My response to him on the internet, and my response to him that I'll regurgitate and paraphrase, I'll paraphrase myself out loud here, is if you are getting stuck on the final rankings of a really smart analyst, which I very much consider Nate Tice to be, and you are not listening to what they actually say, you're missing the whole point. We get obsessed with the graphic, right? Here is Nate Tice's top 5 QBs in the 2024 draft class. Here's Dan Orlovsky's. Here's Lewis Riddick's. Here's Trevor Sikkema's at PFF. Here's this guy. Here's that guy. Here's Hoffman's. Here's Paulson's. And then you ignore everything that we say when we've done some amount of homework and research and come at it from some level of expertise. And I'm certainly not putting myself on the same level as all those guys I just mentioned, but I don't know nothing, right? We've done an amount of homework to come to those conclusions. And when he says, I wish someone would challenge Nate on some of these things, I did at the Combine. We had that conversation. And he was like, yes, the things you're saying that worry you about Drake May also worry me. I see them. You're not incorrect on the analysis. I just ultimately don't think they matter as much, and thus I would take him on my hypothetical team, right? And he's also not drafting for a team. Nate said in the interview that we did last week that if he was Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator, the guy that he'd probably want is Jayden Daniels because the skill set matches the scheme, right? So there's nuance, one, that people just love to ignore for what's the baseline ranking on the graphic. And two, the point is not the graphic. The point is not the ranking. The point is the actual information. And then it's up to all of us to suss that out. The reason Nate and I came out with different rankings, even though we saw the players very similarly, is there's stuff, for instance, about Drake May that I just couldn't get over from a consistency standpoint by the end of the process. And there's certain stuff about Jayden Daniels not attacking the middle of the field, for instance, that he really, really values. And Drake May did that at an extremely high level. I don't disagree that there's more of Drake May on tape attacking the middle of the field in college than Jayden Daniels. I just looked at it and was like, I don't think that's an incapability. I think it's the fact that he had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas on the outside, and he was making business decisions that were clearly good for business. He won the Heisman Trophy and was awesome, and their LSU team could have been a playoff team if their defense wasn't abysmal. So at the end of the day, every team, like real personnel evaluator, is going to have different things they value. And that is going to be both off their own experience and the system that they're trying to fit a player into. If you think I'm sure GMs that love certain players that are like, oh, that edge player, that guy I freaking love. I can't believe that he's available to me, but he doesn't fit my system and I can't draft him because my coaches don't have a use for him. That's the reality of the situation sometimes. So you can either ignore all that information, all the good intel that an analyst like a Nate Tice, a Lewis Riddick, a Dan Orlovsky, all these guys that we have on, Logan Paulson on Take Command, give you, and just be like, but they ultimately said ABC, and I think BCA. And often when we say ABC, it's like, I guess A, but I really like B and C too. And the comments are, why do you hate B? I don't. And so my hope would be that if you hear this mini rant, that you go, instead of getting mad and being like, well, then don't do whatever, just take it. Anthony, with me. Woosah. Hey, the whole point of listening to smart people is to get smarter. So I'm going to listen to the smart people and take in the information and be more informed about the game. I know that's not how it's actually going to work for some people, but there are some people listening, I would say probably a silent majority, who will be like, yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to try to be better about that. Did I do a good job of not being too high horsey?
I think so.
Are you saying that just to make me feel good, or did I actually do a good job?
I think you did a good job.
Okay. I'm sure someone will tell me otherwise. Confidence is high. Continuing on, never read the comments. We posted another one of Marvin's calls, Anthony, because they're entertaining. Chaos Nux says, Marvin's call was odd. He wanted Quinn, but will relentlessly scrutinize Adam Peters. Also, with how crazy the wide receiver market is, because he wanted either T. Higgins or Devontae Adams or Jamar Chase, I think was it? No, it was Higgins or Chase after the season. He goes, you really want to have 2 marquee receivers on the roster you got to pay? That's not a long-term winning strategy for me. Look, remember all the things I said about all the smart people that we have on the show?
Yep.
We book those guests. Then people get to call in and give their opinion on the caller listener line. And we screen those calls. And so not all of them make the air. And not all the ones that make the air we're having on for the substance of the content.
Wow.
I just say Marvin's entertaining as hell. His takes they're incredibly like, it's entertaining because it's a workout for your brain to figure out, does this make any sense? Yeah. He had his most sensical call this week, and I hated 78% of it.
I thought a lot of Marvin's called just because of how vastly improved the call was compared to his others. So I think he gets an A for effort.
Yeah, we'll take the A for effort. Here's what else I would say is there's always a guy in the barbershop who's wrong and loud.
Yep.
And they're almost as loud as they are wrong. And everyone just kind of laughs, and then eventually the adults start talking.
Yeah.
That was probably a little harsh. The adults start talking. But like, if you've been in the barbershop, it's true. And eventually someone looks at him, and typically one of the barbers is like, hey, and this used to happen when I would go, especially to black barbershops. They know what I did, and they'd be like, this dude like actually covers and I was like on the beat at the time. And they'd be like, this dude knows stuff. We're trying to get info. We're trying to get the inside scoop. Marvin, shut up. We asked him the question. Don't you think? Man, shut up. One of the barbers eventually just look at him. Man, shut up.
Nah, some people do really have really, really, really poor takes. And when I'm in there, sometimes I just sit back and like listen, I laugh. Like even my dad, I think my dad has some really bad takes.
Shout out Big Tony.
Shout out Big Tony. And I just sit back, I listen. I sit back and listen. I just laugh. And my mom does the same thing because she knows sometimes he just is very irrational. So, you just got to let him be irrational. And then when they
get it out.
Yeah, just let him get it out.
And sometimes we do that for entertainment purposes here on the radio.
Exactly.
Every time Marvin calls. This one I thought was fun from Wonderful Faison. I'm fascinated. We talked about in a pick 6 last week, Anthony, that they're not going to do team captains this year on like a season-long basis. It's going to be a weekly thing for them. And someone goes, I'm fascinated with this approach they're taking with being a captain. I'm even more intrigued by the sub-leaders he will choose. Should they have a nickname, the inner circle, the round table, the core, so many options? Because they're going to have a leadership council, but they're not going to have formal captains. Whoever is the captain will change on a weekly basis, or the captains on a weekly basis. And someone replied with the potential nickname options, the cabinet. I like that. For a DC team,
cabinet?
I hate most political jokes.
Uh-huh.
But like the idea that like, hey, we got our Secretary of Defense, we got our, all the other cabinet positions. Leader of the Secretary of the Department of the Interior. Like we got Secretary of Education. Like we got all these people that are advising the leader. And while Dan Quinn is not the president, obviously, he's the head coach. I like the idea for a DC group. Like it kind of is like, hey, let's have a cabinet meeting. Let's get the important principals in here to talk about this.
No, that does make sense. You flush it out.
Yeah. Do you have any other nicknames that you'd like to put forth, Anthony?
No.
Okay, I don't either. I wish I'd saved more time for this one. And then we got a couple of punishment suggestions, Anthony. They're not very good, but we'll read them anyway. Actually, there's one that I don't mind. Mr. J. Smitty 555. Craig, I have a genuine question unrelated to the topic of the video, but I felt like you would give a thoughtful response. Why, thanks, J. Smitty. Is the media's main purpose in gathering information in press conferences ultimately for the fans? It's disseminated in the form of an editorial, podcast, or radio show, but main purpose seems to be for the fan. Why isn't there a designated list of fan-made questions screened by the teams asked at every press conference? Good question. The premise here, I would say, is correct. Ultimately, our job is to be the liaison between you, the fans, and the team. I've told that to many a PR folk before. Been like, hey, I don't know what you're doing to me right now, but like my listeners are your fans. And so if you want to reach them, hello. But we're an important neutral kind of step in all of that. What you don't want is fans asking you don't want the team screening the questions because they could pick out all the ones that they don't want to answer. That's part of the reason why we have jobs. Our job we're professionally trained to get information. And hopefully we are skilled in asking questions in a way that, fans wouldn't. We used to do a segment, Anthony, we might bring this back at some point. We did the segment where we'd have fans call in with questions, and I would reframe the question and how I thought it should be asked in a press conference and then try my best to answer it. And if you're good at the job, you can get better information than, say, a fan would, because a fan's like, why does this guy suck? And a journalist might be like, it seems that player X, had some issues this week. What is it that he's not grasping that you're trying to get him to accomplish? And a coach is going to respond much better to that than why did your guys suck? And so there is just kind of we might have information too. That I think that's the other thing is like press conferences are a small piece of the puzzle. Real reporting happens behind the scenes. You have to know information to get information. And so if it's just, hey, here's what fans want to know in a press conference setting, you're actually not going to learn that much. It's the ability in an editorial piece, whether it's a radio show, a column, a news article, whatever, to take the things that we learn behind the scenes, not at a press conference, because people aren't willing to say it at a press conference, with what's said at a press conference to create a more complete picture. That would be my answer to that question. All right. Last but not least, Anthony, we asked for more punishment ideas for our weekly Competition Wednesday segment. We're going to pick 3 games against the spread, and the loser, the worst record of those 3 games, is ultimately going to have to do something on a wheel of punishment / reward. Either one would work. And of course, people wanted to send in more punishments than rewards. I thought this was mean. Mr. Swervon, loser has to listen to Nick Wright talk about Pat Mahomes and LeBron James for an hour straight. Why are we taking shots at Nick Wright?
First of all, I love Nick Wright, and I wouldn't mind doing that because I love LeBron James.
That's also true. That's like a reward for Anthony. He gets to listen to Nick Wright talk about LeBron James. Also, you just have to listen to their show, and that'll happen inherently. Yeah. This one I thought was funny. It's a total misunderstanding of the show, Anthony. Gibbs fan 19, punishment for Craig, switch your roles for one show. If Craig loses, Craig produces, and Anthony gets to host. Punishment for Anthony, if Anthony loses, he has to produce with Linnell in the same booth as him for one show, with Craig in the show host booth as he normally is. But Ant and Linnell must be together producing in the same booth. That would be punishment for you, but you don't need any help. Linnell would be a detriment on the producer side. That's why when Linnell is here, we have him over with me.
Yeah.
Also, Anthony getting to host the show is actually Anthony's nightmare. We've talked about this before. Anthony is not a producer who secretly wants to be a host. There are many of those in our industry. That is not Anthony's, dream. It's actually Anthony's nightmare. He has had actual nightmares about it, that all of a sudden I lost my voice or called out sick last minute and he had to host the show.
That is true. I do not want to be a show host.
So that could actually be a pretty funny, like the punishment would be Anthony has to, we wouldn't do the whole show.
Maybe a segment.
But Anthony has to host a segment.
Okay.
That would be
I'm not
pretty
gonna
funny.
lie. I will come in here.
You'd be so prepared.
I would get here 5 hours early.
For one segment.
For one segment. It will be scripted. It will be mapped out. I will be ready, though.
Last but not least, Mike from Southwest. This one I kind of low-key like. Regarding the bet, loser has to open and close a show during the week with a haiku about losing. I don't know if we have to do a haiku about losing, but like something related to maybe one of the games that you lost, you have to write a haiku. That's like a perfect, that's the right amount for a weekly punishment.
Yeah, that's funny, actually.
All right, I'm going to put that on the list. We're adding haiku to the list.
Okay.
All right, when we get back, speaking of picking games, we're gonna pick our division winners and everything else you can pick for an NFL season for the 2024 season. That's next on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show, final hour here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And it is time for us to pick everything. Our division winners, our Super Bowl participants, our Super Bowl winners, MVP, the whole deal. Anthony, I say we start with division winners, and then we will get into the individual awards, and then ultimately, before the end of the hour, land on Super Bowl winners. That sound good to you?
That sounds fantastic.
All right, we're missing one thing. That's about right. Of course, Chiefs and Ravens tonight here on, I believe, are we carrying that game, or is it on the fan? Westwood One has it. It's somewhere on our family station. The Nats are on over there, so we should have it here. We're professionals. Now you're going to make me look this up. Now this is just awkward.
Yeah.
980 schedule.
I think we are carrying in it.
We have... No, we're not carrying it tonight. Because it's a Baltimore game. So, Ravens, it's blacked out. The old embargo. Check your local listings.
Oh, we have Talking Terps today.
We do have Talking Terps. We also have Mystics Mercury tonight at 10. But tomorrow night, we will have Packers and Eagles starting at 7:30 here on the Team 980. Whoopsie daisies. By the way, this weekend, make sure you do not miss. We'll have Take Command airing on the station this weekend. So fun preview there. And then also we got Burgundy and Gold pregame with Denton and Linnell. And Burgundy and Gold Game Day Live with those guys during the game. And then Doc has your post game. So make sure you're locked in starting at 11 a.m. this weekend. Earl Forsey before those guys as well. But, Anthony, let's dive into it. Let's get into, we're going to have to move quickly here through the AFC. Last year, the AFC East ultimately won by the Buffalo Bills on the last day of the season. Dolphins went 11-6 as well. The Jets finished 7-10 despite getting just 4 snaps from Aaron Rodgers, and the Patriots stunk. Who you got this year?
Out of the AFC East, I'm going to go with the Jets, surprisingly. I'm going with the Jets.
I don't know if it's a huge surprise. It's not who I'm going to pick, but their defense should be nasty. Their offense should be significantly better, assuming that Rodgers is...
They're Rodgers.
Well, it's not even if Rodgers is Rodgers. If Rodgers is not Zach Wilson.
Yeah, that too.
You know, last year's version of Zach Wilson. All due respect and best wishes to future versions of Zach Wilson. I get it. I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I know that people are off them because they finished the season on the losing streak. I actually thought they played pretty tough, the Chiefs, in that playoff game, but the weather is just so brutal. It's just not how they're built.
No excuse for that.
But what I'm saying is there's a little bit more toughness to that team. And the Chiefs are a better team that won the Super Bowl. They're the 2-time defending champs. So going toe-to-toe with them when you're the Miami Dolphins in minus a billion-degree weather, there's some toughness, there's some gumption there. I appreciate that. I also think it's another year of McDaniel and Tua and Tyreek and all them together. I got some questions about their defense, but ultimately, I think it's regular season. We're picking a division winner. I think they can do it. I think people are sleeping on them a little bit.
I just think they're going to start fast again, and they're going to fade as they usually do. Because even Tyreek Hill, towards the end of the season, he always gets nicked up, or there's something that goes on where, his production sort of declines. So if they stay healthy, yes, I think they'll be a threat.
And that's what I'm banking on, right? Yeah. Is that they stay healthy, they get out to enough of a lead, they win the division. I'm not telling you I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But
I'm
picking the division.
Okay.
I think I'm going to take them. I like Buffalo. I like New York. I famously do not like New England. AFC North, maybe the best division in football. Ravens, they finished 13-4 last year, top seed in the conference. Browns 11-6 despite putrid quarterback play from Deshaun Watson. And then Joe Flacco saved their bacon. Steelers, obviously we know, looking at potentially Justin Fields this weekend. Russell Wilson limited today with some calf tightness. And then what the hell is going on with the Bengals, who, by the way, did finish 9-8 last year. Despite Burrow being hurt for most of it. Who you got in the AFC North?
I got the Ravens, man. Too many questions about the Bengals' defense for me. The Steelers, I think, they're going to be a tough out. They're going to finish above 500. We know what they're going to do. And then the Browns, I'm still not sold on Deshaun Watson. Like, I don't think he's remotely close to like what he was in Houston, and I think that's what they were necessarily banking on. And also to start the season without Nick Chubb, that's a huge piece to their recipe for success. So I'm going with the Ravens. You have Derrick Henry, you have Lamar coming off an MVP season. I'm expecting big things out of the Ravens.
For sure. I'm going Baltimore as well. I just think they're the best team, and offensively, I think they got better. Like Henry was still really good last year. I think he was second in the NFL in rushing. It took a billion carries to get there, but unless he falls off a cliff, like in the lanes he's going to have compared to what he had last year with Lamar next to him, Jesus. The Ravens were the best team in the league by a pretty significant margin. I mean, they had a plus 203 point differential last year. Okay. For reference, the Chiefs were plus 77. The Texans were plus 24. The Bills were plus 140. And those were the other three division winners. The next closest team was plus 140. They were plus 203. So, yeah, I'm taking the Ravens. All right, AFC South. Texans won it last year. We know the Jags and Colts were right there at 9-8. And then the Titans brought up the caboose at 6-11. Who you got this year in the AFC South?
Are you serious, Craig? Asking me that question?
You're
know
who
I'm going with,
You're
baby.
going with your Colts.
I'm going with the Colts. Going with the Colts. AR is back. He's healthy. He's ready. Week 1. We're a couple of days away. 3 days. Let's get it. I think whoever wins the first game of the season, the Colts, Texans, that's going to be the winner.
I mean, I think the Colts, if AR is healthy, could be interesting. I think Texans are the smart play, and I'm going to take the Texans. There's a piece of me, though, that wants to be feisty and take the Jags.
Jags?
Trevor Lawrence bounce back season? Don't pretend like it couldn't happen.
You're right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you that I love everything they did. I'm just saying that's a team that started off hot last year despite Lawrence not playing well. And I just is Lawrence actually just not going to be that good? I don't know. I doubt it. And then last but not least, you got the AFC West, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers. 1, 2, 3.
Chiefs.
Here's my real question about the AFC West. Does Jim Harbaugh pull a Harbaugh and somehow make the Chargers, despite the fact that they are completely talent deficient, a 10-win football team?
I don't think it's out of the
realm of possibility.
Yeah, I truly don't, just because I feel as though they're going to play smash mouth football. It worked at Michigan. And if you have linemen that are, excited to go out there and, punch somebody in the mouth, I think you're going to have a lot of success. And you have some backs that, are good in the run game. Gus Edwards coming over from Baltimore. You got J.K. Dobbins also coming over from Baltimore. So I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked.
Yeah, no, I would not be shocked either. You limit Herbert to just, hey, make a bunch of plays when we need you to.
Yep.
And you have one of the best quarterbacks in football that just has an easy job. And you protect him that way. There's so many questions defensively for them.
Too many.
I don't think they're finishing in last place. I'll tell you that much. I don't know who is, though. The Broncos will be better than they should be. The Raiders, I don't know.
They excite me for some reason.
The Raiders?
I love Devontae.
I do too, but I'm trying not to be. I'm trying not to be Antonio Pierce pilled. All right, when we get back, take a look at our winners in the NFC here on the Team 980 on the day that football returns, baby. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And we are making our way through our predictions for the 2024 NFL season. Anthony, are you writing these down, by the way?
Yes, I am, sir. I'm over here typing them up.
Okay, excellent, because, this matters for the whether or not we get to keep our jobs. I don't know if you knew that this year.
Yeah,
New rule in the company, Odyssey-wide. If you suck at picks, you get fired.
Oh, man, I need to do good then.
That's not how that works at all. All right, thank God for that. Although in some respects, not always. Because maybe if it was the other way, you pick well, you got a raise, I'd have more money by now with how I've done on these the last couple of years. Okay, the National Football Conference. We saved the NFC East for last. NFC North. Lions finished last year at 12-5. Packers snuck back into the playoffs at 9-8. Vikings 7-10, Bears 7-10. Of course, the Vikings lost Cousins in the offseason. Bears add Caleb Williams. Who you got?
I'm torn right now. Just because of Caleb freaking Williams.
Wow, you're thinking that high in year one.
I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna go with the Lions. I think these guys are still hungry from last season. I think the loss to the 49ers, they sort of kind of gave it away. That game was like in their grasp. So I think they're hungry, and they're probably going to come out, with something to prove. So I'm going to go Lions here, but I think it will be closer than people expect.
I'm so torn as well. The Bears are intriguing.
Exactly.
They are intriguing, but that's not the team that I'm torn between. I'm looking at Detroit's schedule right now, and I feel comfortable enough about it that they'll be able to do what they got to do. I mean, they got some tough games late. They got San Francisco late in the season, Monday Nighter on December 30th. They got Buffalo late in the season, December 15th. So, they obviously they have got a first-place schedule, and that makes it tough. The Packers have a second-place schedule. That is not as difficult, theoretically. And I am a huge, huge believer in Jordan Love. I think Matt LaFleur is maybe the most underrated coach in the whole league because it's like Kyle, Sean, and it's like the next guy is LaFleur. McDaniels obviously got the big personality, so he gets some love. O'Connell seems to get a lot of love. But LaFleur, man, he is just so good. But I'm going to go Detroit. I think the continuity they have, staff, talent, the whole deal. Their line is great. There's just some buffering there that if one of their key guys, it happened last year. St. Brown missed a ton of games, or missed a couple of games, and he still, or wasn't right for others. They still had a monster season. So I'll go Detroit. And it's just hard to continuously do. I guess it really was just 1 year though. It was a year and a half. That the back half of 22, all of 23, and then. We'll see what they can do here in 2024. All right, NFC South, the division of poop last year. The Bucs won it at 9-8, defeating the Saints, who also were at 9-8. The Falcons were 7-10, threw away so many games, and then the Panthers were a league worst 2-15, a minus 180, by the way.
Yeah, I think this one's actually a little easier. I think I'm gonna go with the Falcons here, just because they have finally competent quarterback play, and I don't expect Kirk Cousins to hand games away when you're on the 1 yard line.
They got Kirk and they got weapons, bro.
Yeah, they're nasty. Defensively, you get Justin Simmons to partner with Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell. You also bring in Matthew Judon. This team, I'm excited for the Falcons.
They just got to come together. They got to have the right vibes, the right juju. were a threat to mess all that up with the Penix pick. They wasted a first-round pick in a year that they're hoping to, theoretically compete for a Super Bowl. Otherwise, why do you spend that kind of money on a quarterback? But they have enough talent that they should still win the division, and then we'll see what they can do from there. Obviously, Kirk's playoff record is not stellar, but I think he'll have a shot to change that this year with maybe the best team he's ever been on. NFC West, Niners.
You're going Falcons, though?
Yes.
For the record?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. In case I was not clear.
Okay.
Atlanta Falcons. NFC West, San Francisco 49ers won it last year at 12-5. The Rams were at 10-7. Seahawks 9-8. Cardinals 4-13. Should be a lot better. One of the best 4-13 teams in the history of the league. A gigantic pain in the butt. Who you got this year in the NFC West?
I'm going to go with the 49ers. I just feel as though the Rams, they can compete offensively. They just don't have much to be desired on the defense side of the ball.
That's compelling.
So I think if their offense, keep them in games and, be the reason they win a lot of games, I think they'll have something, to say. But I still think the 49ers are just a better overall team, like offensively, defensively. Like,
their
it's
talent's
tough to
sick.
Yeah.
Their talent's sick. And by the way, they might get reinforcements midway through the year if Tafunga and Drake Greenlaw come back.
That too.
And we'll see how well those guys play coming off major injuries. But, there's a chance they get reinforcements. But Fred Warner's still there. Ayuk, obviously, now in the fold. Trent in the fold. McCaffrey was unbelievable last year. Debo. And it feels like a last hurrah. And, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm trying to last dance this thing. I'm trying to be like, hey, guys, this is probably the last year we're all together like this. The salary cap is coming for us. Age is coming for us. There's just a reality that if we don't win it this year, then there's probably going to be some changes. The front office is going to do that. Ownership's going to want that. That's how the NFL works. We've had tremendous success, but we got one more thing we got to do. And I'm trying to rally the troops all in one time. I'll take the 49ers as well. The defense point is good. I do think the Rams could mess around. I think the Cardinals are going to float around 500, and I have no freaking idea what to make of the Seahawks.
Man, the thing is their defense is pretty good. They extended Geno. They gave him a chance to, go out there and try
got good receivers.
Run it back. They have a good running back as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to come down to quarterback play at the end of the day. Can Geno really go out there and make the plays? I think their defense.
Yeah, and they got a coordinator who's coming in from college who runs some really good stuff. And McDonald is the head coach.
Mike McDonald.
Their biggest questions in some ways are the coaching staff. All right, last but not least, final divisional pick, and then we'll do our Super Bowl winner as well as our individual award winners next. Cowboys finished first last year, 12-5 after the Eagles collapsed famously down the stretch. Finished 11-6 despite starting 10-1, and then Los Gigantes. They were 6-11, and then your Washington Commanders 4-13, a season that we don't have to talk about for much longer. Anthony, who is winning? God, that L8 streak. L8. They lost 8 in a row last year to finish the season. They were 4-5 at one point, and they finished 4-13. Okay, who is winning the NFC East?
I'm going based off history. History says teams in the NFC East don't repeat twice often. The Cowboys won it last year. This year, I'm going with the Eagles. I think between the Eagles and the Cowboys, those are the two most talented teams in the division. The Giants, I'm not buying at all. Daniel Jones stinks. That was a little harsh. I don't believe in Daniel Jones.
Believe it or not, we got that.
And the Commanders, there's a lot to be desired, but, this isn't our year just yet. We'll leave it up to the Eagles and Cowboys to duke it out, but I think the Eagles, with the revamped offense, sort of kind of got questions about their defense. Hassan Reddick still hasn't reported. No, they have Bryce Huff.
Yeah, they have Huff. Right?
Never mind.
Reddick hasn't reported to the Jets.
Yeah, forget that. But I still have questions about their secondary. James Bradbury's hurt.
And there's a bunch of young dudes, and they might be awesome. Here's the thing. The Cowboys and Eagles are super talented. The Eagles even more so than the Cowboys. I have a billion D questions about both of their staffs. How does this defense adapt without DQ? They have been top 5 the last couple of years. And I don't know. Mike Zimmer's a really good defensive coordinator. but is what he does what they do? Like, is there a mix there in terms of personnel and scheme? And, like, they were 8-0 at home last year. They going to do that again? Feels unlikely. They're 5-1 in the division last year. Feels unlikely. And so they've won 12 games 3 years in a row, and it just feels like you're due for some kind of step back. But I don't love the vibes in Dallas, and I hate the vibes in Philly. I don't know what to do with them. If we're doing a vibe ranking, then the vibes are the best in Washington by a billion, but the talent here is not good enough. I'm going to take Philly. I'm going to hold my nose. I don't feel good about it. It's probably the right answer. That's what I'm going with.
At first, I thought you were going to say the Commanders. That would have shocked me, but
there's part of me that wants to mess around and just be like, I don't know, the Eagles are going to implode, the Cowboys are going to implode, the Giants aren't very good, and the Commanders are going to do the thing they do early on in every coach's tenure, it seems like, and win the division at 9-8.
Yeah.
There's part of me that wants to do that. And if they do that, then we can pull this clip, and I can be mad at myself for not doing it. But the pick you're going to write down, Anthony, next to my name for the NFC East is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Gotcha.
All right, how many did we differ on? We had a lot of similar picks, which scares me but should excite you.
So the NFC, we agreed on all of them. The AFC, we disagreed on the AFC South, the AFC East. Yeah, just two.
There's part of me that makes me now want to switch to the Cowboys, but I'm gonna stick with my guys.
You sure?
Don't push me. When we get back, MVP, Rookie of the Year, offense, defense, all those individual awards. You know it. You love them. You can bet with them if you want to. Not that we'd recommend that kind of thing on our picks based off history. And then the one bet that you can potentially potentially bet on based off recent history. I'm gonna pick the Super Bowl, and I've been good at that. So let's see if we can make it 3 years in a row. Next on the Hoffman Show. All right, who's going to win it all? Individual awards, and then ultimately, who is winning the Super Bowl? We're going to try to answer that question in the next 10 minutes on the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, let us begin with the final segment of picking things here, NFL picks, with our regular season awards. Then we'll wrap it up with our Super Bowl predictions. Who do you have for NFL MVP this season?
NFL MVP season, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes, actually. I'm going to go with you might think it's the obvious choice. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes just because I think getting a three-peat means a lot to him and his team. And I think if they're going to have that happen, he's going to have to, produce at an, all-time rate. Also, I'm not too confident in their defense, so I do think their offense will have to be more explosive. And they have a lot of explosive players on their team. Hollywood's hurt right now, so when he comes back,
but they still have Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
You
got Kelsey still.
Whether they should have Rashee Rice is a different story based off everything that he's facing legally, but they have Rashee Rice. Yeah. They've still got the running backs. They brought in some guys. Like, we'll see if Pacheco is getting carries. They brought in Samaje Perine, our old friend, who's been a really effective player for a couple of different teams since he left here. So they've got weapons. Plus, as you mentioned, Kelsey. Some of their other tight ends aren't too bad either. Mm-hmm. I actually agree with you. I think Patrick Mahomes is the MVP this year because he's obviously the best player in the league. And I feel like at some point, there's always a year. This happens with LeBron. Like, this happened with a couple of other players. It happened with Jordan back in the day. Ironically, didn't happen as often with Brady because, when Brady had his monster statistical seasons, it was like he scored 50 touchdowns. But, Peyton Manning, I think, won more MVPs than Brady, which is why, for a long time when they were both in the league, it was a legitimate conversation until Brady went on and won even more Super Bowls and kept playing for, what felt like a decade after Peyton did. And I was like, okay, Brady's the GOAT. But those guys, while they were playing it in their primes, a lot of people, myself frankly included, thought Peyton's the better player. It's just the team success was different, yada, yada. We don't need to relitigate those old debates. But there comes years where everyone's just like, this dude's the best player in the sport, and we haven't given it to him in a while, and it feels like we should. And Lamar won it last year. I think this year it'll be Pat again. If you had to pick a non-Pat player, who would it be?
A non-Pat player? To be honest, I think MVP is quarterback driven. So
it definitely is.
If I didn't go Patrick Mahomes, I would probably say between Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen.
Wow. I see. Rodgers, the last time he played, actually wasn't as good as people think he was.
When he won MVP?
No, there was a year after that.
Oh, well, if he gets back to MVP form.
But there was a year after he won back-to-back MVPs where he wasn't as good, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
So there's that. I don't know.
I would say Josh Allen for one, just because
that was gonna be my answer.
Okay.
Is Allen had a legit case last year.
Yeah. And
I feel like he's good enough that there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, how has he not won one? We got to give it to Allen. So obviously the team success has to be there. If you had to pick a sleeper, I think my sleeper pick would be Goff.
Goff for MVP.
He threw for 4,500 yards last year on a 12-win team.
How many touchdowns did he throw?
It was 30.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think that's I don't know.
Again, it's sleeper.
Yeah.
It's not like he'd be my third guy.
Well, my sleeper would be Jordan Love.
I like that. I like that a lot.
He would be my sleeper just because I think a lot of people got a lot of expectations for Love based off what he was able to do down the stretch of last season. And if he's going out there,
his numbers were sick.
Man.
The other one is Dak.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to be, I think, better than I think they will be. All right, Offensive Player of the Year. Different than MVP. I'm going to say, actually, if you think it's going to be the same guy, if you think it's going to be Pat, okay, fine. I'm going to pick a non-quarterback. But who are you going with?
Offensive Player of the Year. I'm a little bit torn. I would go Bijan Robinson.
I don't hate that pick.
He would be my guy just because
he could have 2,000. I actually think he will have over 2,000 yards from scrimmage.
Exactly. And I think Kirk, first of all, he's going to use them, utilize them. But I think also what Atlanta has built down in that they want to run the ball. He's explosive when he has the ball in his hands. We've seen it firsthand when he played the Commanders. So I'm thinking like with improved quarterback play, the fact that he's going to be the bell cow, getting the ball, getting receptions, I think this guy could really be in the conversation. And you know McCaffrey's also going to be up there probably.
Yeah, I think McCaffrey's a great call. I'm going to take JJ, though, because I think if Jefferson has like a 15, 16, 1,700-yard year, which they're going to try to get him because they're going to force feed him the ball, with Sam Darnold as his quarterback, people are going to be like, oh, my God. So I'm going Jefferson as my
That
nod.
means you're believing in Sam then, because Sam's going to have a couple of 300, 400-yard games.
He's going to.
Okay. Hey, look.
He's also going to have, in those games, he might have 4 picks, too,
Okay.
and they're not going to win.
As
but
long as we know.
They're going to throw the ball, and Kevin is going to get Justin Jefferson damn near 200 targets this year as long as Jefferson's healthy.
Okay.
His numbers last year were insane, and he missed a bunch of games.
Yeah.
His pace last year was like a 2,000-yard pace. CeeDee Lamb, by the way, same kind of volume play is not a bad idea. All right, defensive player of the year. Typically, it just goes to the best edge rusher. Is that where we're going here, or do you think that someone else could make a play?
So who won it last year?
Garrett, I believe.
Yeah,
won it last
Myles Garrett won it. I mean, typically it does go to the best pass rusher in the league. I'm torn between the three at the top. You got TJ, you got Garrett, you got Micah.
Of those three, Micah's the only one that hasn't won it yet, which is why I'm going to pick Micah.
Okay, I like that one then.
Like if he has a 16-sack season,
yeah,
17-sack season, which he can do.
I really want to think of a non-defensive lineman. I want to think Jalen Ramsey. Like we haven't talked about him.
Hey, look, I picked the Dolphins to win the division,
Yeah.
and if he has a couple of key picks and a couple of sacks, forced fumbles, like Mays and Klassen were talking about this on the Athletic Football Show. They made each other pick a non-edge, and Ramsey didn't come up, but the criteria was like, can you get 5, 5, and 5? Can you get 5 picks, 5 sacks, and 5 forced fumbles? And who are the guys that can do that? And the name they came up with
Kyle Hamilton.
was Kyle Hamilton.
Okay. I like that one then. I would go, if I'm not going to go Ramsey, I would go Kyle Hamilton. But I think Jalen Ramsey being in a different system, not under Vic Fangio, not to say, Vic was the reason behind his lack of success, but I think this is sort of kind of a fresh start, really put his name back to, being a top cornerback in the league. So I would say Ramsey.
Yeah, my sleeper guy would also be Sauce if he just has a crazy year and the Jets are really
Where
good.
he intercepts the ball. He's there. He just
he's got to produce.
Catch the ball.
Obviously. All right, offensive rookie of the year. Are you going the hometown kid?
Yes,
You are.
I'm going to go with Caleb Williams just because.
Oh, that hometown kid.
Oh, you're going with Jayden Daniels.
No, I'm going with Caleb Williams.
Oh.
You went with the true hometown, like he's from here. I was referencing the hometown as he plays here.
Oh.
No, I'm also going Caleb Williams.
Okay, yeah, I'm going Caleb Williams. Again, he has what he needs around him. He has a solid O-line. He has a good run game. He has 3 legitimate threats. I think he's going to be good.
Yeah, I agree. I just think he's set up to succeed in a way. Like he's going to have the first 4,000-yard season in Bears history as a quarterback. It's just a crazy thing about the Bears, but it's true. Defensive rookie of the year. This is hard.
You think it's hard?
I think so because I don't think, obviously there was no defensive players taken until the teens in the draft this year. But I think we might wind up in the same guy. 1, 2, 3, Latu.
I'm going with the first dude off the board.
He was a 10-sack guy potentially as a rookie on a team that could be good.
Exactly. That needs pass rush juice. He's going to be thrown into those situations on third down when you have to get to the quarterback. If he can just peel his ears back and go after the quarterback, he's going to make it happen. He did it in the preseason. I think he's going to do it in the regular season as well.
The second guy off the board, I believe, was Kenyon Mitchell. Maybe it was Dallas Turner, but I think Kenyon Mitchell has a chance as well. Gets a couple of picks with the Eagles. All right. Comeback player of the year, if we want to do that, I would say Kirk is probably my favorite for that.
Yep. Kirk.
I think he's going to have a big year coming off the Achilles. And that leaves, Anthony, one pick to make. We'll tell you our Super Bowl champions next on The Hoffman Show. All right, wrap it up here on the Hoffman Show. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're just a couple hours from football, Ant. Chiefs and Ravens.
I can't wait, man.
Showing video of them warming up on SportsCenter. Looking up the screen. It's like, oh, look, Lamar's out there throwing a ball around. He's going to play. Not this preseason, like, they're just out there warming up nonsense. By the way, you also got U.S. Open action tonight. You got some W action tonight, so great sports night if you got multiple screens, although obviously most of us will have the NFL on the big one. So excited for that. Super Bowl champs hang their banner, and then they get back to work against a team that was the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. Favorite part of the show today, Anthony, was?
Probably these predictions. I'm not going to lie. I get excited.
You do get excited for the prediction. You don't get excited when they come true, but.
Yeah, that too.
Well, there's been that. That's been. I loved our guests today.
That too.
It was our first time having Dan Pizzuta on from the 33rd team, and he's going to join us all season long. And I am very ecstatic with that decision because Dan was great. And then if that wasn't good enough, Dan Orlovsky, well, we know him. He's always great. Orlovsky was on at 5 o'clock today. Definitely can't miss interview. We talked exclusively Commanders, so you can check that out. If you don't have time tonight before the game start, check it out tomorrow morning in the Hoffman Show podcast feed. So with that said, the housekeeping out of the way, I guess we should say tomorrow on the show, we got an insider from Tampa on the show to preview the game for the weekend. You have Take Command preview as well, Logan's thoughts and some stuff that we discovered when watching Tampa on tape. We also have Nikki Javala on the show tomorrow. Anything else? Our first round of game picks for the year? Our pick 6 players?
Yep.
We got a lot of stuff tomorrow, Anthony.
Yeah, we do. Oh, finish Friday.
And it's today. By the way, we did a bad job today. All about the ball Thursday, and we were so about ball that we didn't even say that it was all about the ball Thursday. But our first finish Friday, have you call in, tell us how you're gonna finish the week strong. So that'll be tomorrow at 4:30. Excited to launch that as well. Okay, with that, we have reached the end of the radio program, in which we have one final salute to a legend, and we also have some high quality nonsense.
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
This is a joke for Anthony only. 5-0, 5-0.
Yes.
It's worth it. It's worth it. Okay. Nonsense first, and then we'll end on a not a somber note, on a celebratory note of a legend saying goodbye. But we'll start with a legend who's already said goodbye. J.J. Watt is very good at football. He's apparently not as good at keeping his dogs quiet while he's doing his new job of being in the media, including this appearance on the Pat McAfee Show.
So this is going to surprise everybody.
I mean, geez.
Is that Carl?
What the hell?
Barking aliens?
The dogs are
Oh, my Lord. That just turned on my television. You're now on my TV.
Oh, it's an honor. So are you. Congrats, JJ, on TV. What type of dogs do you have over there?
I got a golden retriever and a golden doodle. Hey, Tax, you want to keep it down? Want TV in here?
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
He'll send him in.
Same guy comes every single day, delivers the mail every single day, sees him every single day, yet every day he barks at him. Nothing ever happens. Never attacked our house one time. We've never been having issues, yet every day we bark at the, learn.
I have a very dumb corgi who, similar situation.
Fat as well.
Well,
Hey, whoa. We don't got to take a shot. We don't take a shot at the corgi for the size. Just call him dumb.
Oh my gosh, dogs are
they're a trip, man. We're dog sitting right now, and we have an angel child of a dog that we are sitting. Is the only dog we dog sit because the dog is so well behaved, and yet still there are times where I'm like, you are so smart. Now I feel like this is how my mother used to talk to me sometimes. I just had like a moment. You are so smart. Why are you being so dumb? That was a flashback to my childhood sometimes. Anyway, speaking of flashbacks to childhood, the Chargers social media team took some time this offseason to dive into their players' Facebook pages. And then they confronted their players with their Facebook pages.
Can you sign this for me?
Oh, nah, hell no. Where y'all found this on Facebook? Y'all went on Facebook?
Yeah.
Hey, yo! Where y'all found this? What's on?
That's bad.
Hell no. That's bad. Y'all stalking my family Instagram.
Holy jambalaya. Oh my God.
I feel like my Facebook would be pretty bad too, Ant.
Man, mine is.
I've thought about deleting it a lot.
I haven't thought. Mine is private, so like the people that have seen the pictures already, you still have access to see those photos.
Yeah, right. But like, I got on Facebook when I was like 16, 15 years old.
Yep.
So no telling what's back there.
Yeah.
I hope mine's private.
Mine is. If
Pretty sure
you
mine is private.
pull anything off my Facebook, it is blackmail. That's how I feel. It is blackmail against me. Craig, do not.
I got better things to do with my time. All right. Last but not least, we found out in an announcement on Instagram that Alex Morgan, the U.S. soccer legend, is retiring effective almost immediately. It's this weekend. But before she told the rest of the world in a 4-minute Instagram post where she also announced the reason why it's so sudden, that she is pregnant with her second child, she told her teammates at San Diego Wave.
Yeah, there's no really other way to say it. I am retiring. Really blessed, but it was very unexpected. I'm pregnant. And I'm just going to be a supporter of this team forever. San Diego is my home. I'm going to be coming to the games, but this Sunday will be my last time stepping on the field with you guys. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you first before I let everybody know.
I mean, it is something that I'm sure Alex, this is not the way I imagine she would go out. It's like, oh, I'm pregnant. Apparently it was a surprise. That happens, and family planning is so complicated. Like, there's no telling why, what I've learned, the older I've gotten, the more people I know that have, been pregnant, given birth. Like, it's just an unpredictable thing in a lot of ways. And so, for whatever reason, it was a surprise and she's pregnant and she's like, oh, okay, we're done. And so one final time for her this weekend. And real quick before we get out, I was able to talk to Tara McKeown from The Spirit today, who was a forward growing up in Southern California watching Alex Morgan and had this to say upon hearing the news.
It's going to be her second to last game. We just played against her, and obviously she's grown the game so much and just been, yeah, like you said, a player I looked up to growing up as a forward, and now having to defend against her, I'm glad that I won't have to do that anymore.
No doubt. More from Tara on the Hoffman W Sports YouTube page. We'll see you tomorrow.